From trauma to joie de vivre. How is that possible? Welcome to Post-Trauma Secrets and Decluttering, where we go behind the scene and reveal how to free yourself. Come and discover the 4 dimensions of a decluttering journey with your host, Valerie.
Hey there, amazing viewer tuning in from around the world. I've got something truly extraordinary for you today. If you ever wonder if real transformation is possible, if you're stuck in life, or if you simply love inspirational story, then you're in for a treat. Welcome back to the Dual Transformation series. I'm your host, Valerie, and today we have a very special guest with us. Our guest today, Ilene, has embarked on a journey that will leave you speechless. She's gone from battling PTSD, living in fear, and feeling trapped in an abusive cycle to taking control of her life, setting boundaries, and even decluttering her home. Her story is a shining example of what's achievable with determination and the right support. In this video, we'll dive into Ilene's incredible journey of transformation. She's graciously agreed to share her insight and experiences, answering our questions about the challenges she faced and the valuable lessons she learned along the way. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Ilene and her incredible journey firsthand. Ilene, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Let's start at the beginning. Can you give us a tiny summary of what was your situation like 9 months ago?
I found out about Do Well through, I think it was on the internet. My situation at that time, I had recently been divorced, 8 months prior to this. So a single mom, my house is messy. I was struggling to get out of bed every day to face the day, kind of. I had gone through, I don't know if I was officially diagnosed with PTSD, but definitely with generalized anxiety disorder. But I think it was PTSD. It just hadn't been diagnosed all the way. So I was struggling. I came across the ad about Doers Academy, and I had called, and so I don't know, is that how much background? I'm not sure how much detail you want me to go into.
No worry, I just want you to feel comfortable and share what you want to share because you are truly inspirational.
Thank you for saying that. In lots of ways, I don't feel I was inspirational. I think that I had hit rock bottom in a lot of ways, that I was not happy with where my life was. And I knew that I needed to make changes. I had made the big decision and gotten divorced, which was huge. And in facing that, I was also facing a lot of realizations that, my house was messy and cluttered. I think I was in survival mode for a really long time. And previously to getting divorced, I guess 2 years ago, my mother had passed away. I was very close with my mom. And then my husband lost his job. And then he got COVID long haul. And then his emotional dysregulation came back, and we had a lot of yelling in the household. And then I got divorced. And so I had been in survival mode for probably a good consistent, probably a year and a half before I got into your program. And you have some amazing things in your program that really helped me to start calming myself and getting my cortisol level down. So like one of the things that did attract me to you guys is the fact that you talked about cortisol level, and when your brain wasn't functioning, your executive part of your brain wasn't functioning because of that high cortisol level. And this is something I experienced. Like I knew my brain was not functioning how it should function. And so I knew that I needed to do something. And so when I heard about being in, the fight or flight, I knew that was what I had kind of been in and out of long-term for probably a year and a half. And so, I don't know, that's kind of the base of where I was coming from when I got into your program. And then I can tell you the changes your program made.
But just one step at a time. So I want to dive more in terms of when you realize that your clutter and your emotional struggle were connected. When is that moment?
So I think I had been in your program probably a month and a half. And during that time, I had been doing 15 minutes a day and with the milestones that we have in the program. And I was in my bedroom, and I recognized that, like, I had so much, like, piles of things and like boxes of clutter and things surrounding me. And I had thought, okay, well, I'll, and I think a lot of people initially think this as we get started in the doers group, like, oh, okay, I'm going to clean up, I can do this on my own. But like, I had tried to clean a space, and then that space had just gotten recluttered, and like new boxes with new stuff had just filled the hole that I had just emptied. And I thought, this feels safe. And I was sitting on my bed, and I was sort of like, the end of my bed had 3 feet high of boxes and clothing and things just kind of piled up. And I thought, this is connected, like, because I had cleaned it and then it just filled right back up. So like, I wasn't able to really make progress because I just kept refilling it. And I recognized that it made me feel safe, which is kind of a strange thing to think, all this, it's making me feel safe, but it was making me feel safe. And that's why I was putting it back. I was filling the space that I had just emptied because that felt normal, or that felt secure for me. And that's when I kind of recognized, like, it's not just clutter, there's an emotional connection. And then more into the course, I learned more about trauma and the connection of trauma.
So throughout your journey, you work closely with me in the different call. Could you describe the support and the role we play in your transformation?
Okay, so it is amazing. I love the fact that I can be going through something on a personal level, and I can get on the call, and then the awareness, because doing the milestones and getting on the calls, we are very much focused on clutter and changing the clutter. But there is that tie between our emotions and the clutter and the reasons and the purposes behind that. And so when something would come up organically, for example, one time we did a process where we held an item in our hand and then felt the energy of, or energy is not the right word, but we felt, like, what does this mean to me? Or, what are the things that I think about this item? And like recognizing that I had a lot of emotion. One of the things I picked up was a dog hair clipper that you cut dog's hair with. And I was holding that and recognizing I felt guilty because I needed to cut my dog's hair, but I hadn't cut that. And so every time I would see that item, it would give me an emotional feel of guilt, even though, because I needed to do something with it. So, and sometimes I think our emotions, I've been afraid of feeling emotions for a really long time, but emotions are simply our body, becoming aware. And like there was guilt attached to that because I did need to take action and cut my dog's hair. So sometimes our emotions are like messages to us. But for me personally, I had shut down feeling emotions because it was too overwhelming when trauma had happened to me as a child. So anyhow, so being able to then talk to you guys about, hey, I'm feeling guilt about this item, or this is showing up in my life. Both you and JM, and also Julie, that is another coach on your calls, the support and the understanding, and then being able to talk to me about, why is this showing up? Or, what is this different thing? So the ability to reach out and talk to someone when I need to talk to someone about what is going on, and then being able to, the coaching and the guidance that you guys give me then helps me to process and make a shift in my life. And maybe my example wasn't perfect or a good example, but it's happens in so many different ways. And a lot of those things are just like realizations that I'm putting my clutter back up, in boxes around my bed, and this is just refilled up. And then I could talk to you about it on the call, and we can, kind of dissect stuff and look at stuff. And that's been very, very helpful for being able to move forward and to, like, because sometimes I have the reasoning, but sometimes my cortisol level still would get high, and I couldn't see it because I was in it, if that makes sense. So by being able to communicate with you guys on the calls, and there's oftentimes a lot of subjects or different subjects for different calls, like the stress management call or, the time management call. All of the different calls have different purposes. And I love that they're all holistic to where we are healing in lots of different areas. And like JM will help me with my affirmations, and you'll help me with that pile of clutter that's coming back up. And Julie can help me figure out how to organize it. And so it's very nice that there's so many different areas that we're able to address on the calls, and that you guys are able to help us with.
Thank you. So, sometimes crossing the threshold from your old life to your new path can be challenging.
Yes.
Can you take us back to one of those moments and share what emotion you were experiencing?
So for me personally, I have had I'm going to call it an identity crisis, because I went from being a caregiver for my husband who had experienced a stroke 8 years ago, helping him, get back on his feet, but very much mindful of what his needs were and how to take care of him, to suddenly getting divorced and not having to take care of him anymore. And like my sense of who I am and my purpose, and kind of to a degree, my identity had really fallen through because of what I had gone through in my life. And honestly, I think divorce is one of the biggest traumas anybody can face in their life, or go through. It's very hard, and grief is very hard, and death. And I had two of those right on top of each other. Anyhow, so with the different, so I had identity that I came up with, that I was kind of facing. And there was another thing of authenticity. And in one of the milestones, we talk about authenticity, and there's process. There's multiple things that you can do to work on developing authenticity. And for me, that was a huge aha, because although I felt I was very honest and authentic and truthful, there was a part of me that recognized that I was not as truthful as I thought I was, that I was not being authentic to the reality of what I was going through. And so a lot of people might recognize it as codependency. And in my relationship with my husband, I was very much codependent, and I was always taking care of his needs and never addressing my own needs. And I was also telling everyone that we were fine. Everything's fine. We're fine. Life is good. Everything's fine. And I told that, I'm going to call it a lie now. And it took me a little while to, admit that that was not true. But that was why I was not feeling authentic, because I was saying everything was fine, while inside I was dying spiritually. I was dying emotionally, from the relationship and the toxic, I'm going to paraphrase and call it our toxic relationship. We can also call it narcissistic abuse for other people who may be aware of different terms. I was dying spiritually every single day when I was in that, and it was very hard. And I would put on a happy, smiley face and say, I'm fine, everything's good, and I didn't want people to see the truth. I didn't want to see the truth. So I guess it wasn't so much that I didn't want other people to see it, as I didn't want to see it because I couldn't face it, and I didn't want to have to deal with it or change, because it really wasn't okay. I wasn't okay. How I was being treated wasn't okay. And I didn't want to face it. And so when we came to the part on authenticity, I really recognized I was not being authentic. And I also knew that I wanted to change, and I wanted to heal my life. And this was an important step for me to face and to change. And so it actually has been a long process. And I kept going back and repeating that because I I just couldn't get it. And I had to kind of figure out why I didn't feel authentic and how was I not being authentic in my life. And then once I did recognize those things, then came the choice of, do I want to change this? And do I want to make that change to move forward? And I feel that I did and have done that. So anyhow, I don't know if that answers the question completely, but that was one of the ones for me. Authenticity and identity have both been very big. And I do feel like I'm still working on them, but I have come a huge way. And I would not have come that far if I hadn't had the program, if I hadn't had the connection with you and JM and Julie being able to help assist me with my questions as they came up, and also the support. And hopefully we'll talk about the support later on in this, because the support of the other members is huge too for self-growth and self-healing.
Totally. And I don't want to reduce that. The support is really an important part of. So, every journey when we're going to healing is ups and downs and challenges and new things that resurface and things like that, Can you share particular challenges that resurface for you or that you encounter during the program and how you work through it?
One of the ones that comes up, well, I don't know, there's so many. So I want to share the one about my work, but before that, I do want to say that it's very easy to think, oh, I got this. Oh, I figured this out. I healed this. I'm better. And then something triggers you and you go into PTSD or your cortisol jumps up and you don't even realize that you're having a PTSD, effect or whatever. And that has happened to me multiple times. So or I think I already fixed this. And then here I am again. And sometimes I think there's layers that we go through. But I did want to, so this brings up thinking about, I had a challenge with a coworker at work. And I don't want to downplay this. It was actually a really big challenge in my life. And at one point I had to take time off of work because the anxiety and the conflict with this other coworker had gotten so great. And this is something where you guys actually did a lot of coaching with me and helped me. And where I didn't feel like I could work with her without getting anxiety to the point that I would cry or not be able to do my job. Those fears had come up so much. And so we did multiple things. We did the amazing doers reset, which I totally love and is one of the greatest tools that I have in my tool belt now. Anyhow, but we talked about doing the doers reset, specifically around feeling capable and able and confident to work with her and to be able to hold my own and to not go into anxiety or breaking down into tears. And you gave me some other skills about having a rock in my pocket and touching that and grounding myself and grounding my energy. And of course, then deep breathing and another, another technique of anyhow, there were 4 or 5 different techniques that I knew I had in my tool bag and I could go into my work. And that if I got triggered or if I, started having stress and anxiety coming up, that I could use any of those 5 things. And it would help me to be able to work with this particular coworker, hold my own and be okay. And in part of the doers reset, it has, I am strong, I am able. And simply so before I went to work in the car, I did the doers reset before I went in there and I visualized having a good work experience. And so I used multiple techniques and things that you guys coached me through. And then going in and being able to work with that coworker. And first I just, did an hour at the end of one of my shifts. And I was like, yes, I made it for an hour. I did it. I can do this. And so I built up confidence, and you guys also helped to guide me in starting small and celebrating every step, every success. And then I worked 2 hours with her, and then I worked a 4-hour shift. And then that confidence in knowing that I could do it, and the fear that I was going to have PTSD show up again with working with her. And we had a conflict where she was in my face yelling at me, and it did cause, caused these things to happen. And so that fear that it would happen again really has diminished to where I don't even worry about checking the schedule as to when she's going to work or not work, because we worked through it. And I'm confident that if something were to happen again, if she were to get in my face and yell at me again, like I would totally be able to handle that and be calm and, and also hold my space and not, collapse into a fit of tears or fear and anxiety. So I really feel like that particular thing, how do you put a price on that? Like that was really an amazing thing that I can go to work in confidence that I'm not going to have that issue anymore. And if it does, I have 5 or 6 tools that I can use to calm myself in that moment, in that space. So I don't know if that's one of the things. And there's so many. I could probably tell 5 or 6 other stories.
That's awesome. So, along your journey, you had multiple revelation, like significant revelation about yourself. Could you walk us through the process of some of those realization, how they unfolded for you?
So the one that's coming up to mind, and I'm going to be vulnerable here in sharing this. The one that comes up to mind is one that recognizing that it was on an affirmation call with JM. And one of the other participants was working through getting an affirmation for herself and about her house. And they had I don't remember exactly what her affirmation was, but I remember thinking on that call, like, woo, that does not fit with me. I do not have a clean and tidy house, and I am, not a clean and tidy person. So like, I knew that something was up, and like, and I at this point had been in the program probably 6 months. And so I knew that when a big, like emotional imbalance, I could feel it in my body, like, woo, that does not resonate with me. And so I knew that was up. And so I asked JM, like, okay, I'm needing a different affirmation, and her affirmation just triggered me and that something is not here. And so we explored it, and he was helping me to find another affirmation. And I recognized that I feel dirty. I feel like I cannot have a clean and tidy house because I am not a clean person. I'm a dirty person. And like that realization that was my belief system about myself, that I'm a dirty person. And then I immediately, and I have had counseling also. So I am doing your program and having counseling, working with a counselor. I have been since I got divorced, working with a counselor. Anyhow, so like some of this stuff had come up in my sessions of some abuse that I had experienced in early childhood. And so knowing that some things had happened to me that were out of my control as a child, but that I had taken on, say, a belief system that I'm dirty because of this, and a lot of people will call it damaged, or, I'm damaged goods. That's not in my childlike mind, because my abuse happened as a child. It just went in as I'm dirty. And I felt like I was dirty, like to my core. Sorry, and I didn't know this was going to be vulnerable. I hope that's okay. And so part of that, recognizing that is not true, and that belief is not serving me, never served me, and was never true. It just wasn't true, but I had believed it, and I had been also acting according to that. Like if I believed I'm dirty, then I don't need to clean up my house. I can have clutter around me. I'm a dirty person, so I need to act dirty. And so in changing that belief, and the affirmations are amazing for doing that. Anyhow, so JM was perfect, like right on the spot. He met my need, what my need was. And we created an affirmation that when I say it helps me so much. And my new affirmation is that I honor and respect myself now that I live in a clean and tidy house. And that affirmation brings me so much healing and growth, and it continues. So this is one that is a big one that I'm still, I don't know, absorbing and working on. But every time I say that, I honor and respect myself. Those are things that I am learning, that I'm doing. This is the healing and the growth that takes place on like such a organic, deep level of healing that subconscious misbelief, misconception that I took on as a child and that is not me. And when I honor and respect myself now that I live in a clean and tidy house, I have momentum and desire to live in a clean and tidy house and to surround myself with that, because I am a clean person and I am a good person. And those things were never true. And so being able to let go of some really deep things is huge, 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 huge. And I have had so many breakthroughs on your calls, but that was one of the ones that really, really changed me and continues to change me on a core level. And I am so, so grateful that one of the other callers had brought up, one of the other members of the Doers Academy had brought up her stuff, and it helped me to bring up my stuff and then to recognize and work through, and now have that healing affirmation that I say every day that empowers me to clean stuff and to, I mean, it gave me momentum that I can't, and it gave me an energy shift that like, it's just amazing. Like, it really
It's a
is.
huge shift, because I remember Ilene at the beginning of her program hiding behind her camera, being sure that there's a pictures and even nothing on the camera, not her
Yes, I would
picture.
do the empty screen. I would do the empty screen and just listen.
Yeah. Versus now having you being able to be here talking about your story and like smiling.
And that's the other thing. Like, I have my happy back. I am gonna say, like, life has ups and downs, and sometimes I will have, you know, a down day. We all have down days, but I have tools and skills and things that I've learned through your program, stress management tools especially. Like, I love the stress management call. Like, I'm probably graduated beyond that, but I keep going back to the stress management call because I think those tools and things are something that I want to keep applying, so I keep my cortisol level down. And anyways, but there's so many ways in which connecting with the other members and being on the calls helps me so much.
Yeah. So overcoming the ordeal of confronting past trauma and managing anxiety is commendable. And the reward phase of the journey often brings personal growth and positive change, like you just mentioned. Can you pinpoint another moment, and it's maybe a group moment, where you felt a significant shift in your mindset and behavior? And I have one in mind, if you don't mind. But I remember one day you called me and you say, there are some people that will come into my home.
Oh, okay. Yes. So little by little, and you know, like, you don't realize how big the steps really are when you're going through that. But my sister-in-law had said, you know, we want to help you. Let us know when you're, you know, like, we'll come and help you clean your yard. And I actually, I had another friend do a similar thing. Like, I'll come help you clean your house. And I said, well, wait, I'm just starting this program, and I know that I have to change some things in me, or I'll just make it messy again. And so, like, I have to figure out the mindset, or I have to figure out why I have this mess, why I put this here. And one of my other things I think that I did unconsciously, but now I can see it and sort of laugh at it, was that I was putting the clutter, you know, on my front porch, particularly to keep people away, to scare people away, right? And also, when you think back, I had that belief that I was dirty, right? And I was hiding some of the toxic relationship and the abuse that I was experiencing. And so it made a lot of sense that I was actually unconsciously putting clutter in front of my house or at my front door. I would literally not invite people in my house. I would step outside my front door and talk to them on the front porch because, well, my house was messy. And I also didn't want to let people into my inner world. So, like, there's a lot of deeper stuff that we have uncovered and talked about on many of the calls. But yeah, so my sister-in-law, volunteered, we'll come and help you clean. And they came on two different occasions. And the first one, they came and helped me with just the bathroom. So I said, okay, I'm ready for some help. And I think I can handle just the smallest room in my house, the bathroom. And we literally, she helped me. We went through things. And there's different things that, anyhow, in your program, they have different ways of how to clean different areas, which is amazing. Anyhow, so we did the bathroom. And that gave me a huge boost. And then 3 weeks later, I invited them to come back again. And we went down to a storage room in my house and we worked on that. And I also want to also say you did some coaching with me.
How many people came that day?
I had my brother, my sister-in-law, Karen, and my two girls. So we had five of us plus me working in the house and around different areas. And so we kind of did conquer and divide in like it. So one of my friends worked with my daughters in their room, in them cleaning up their own stuff. I'm also going to say that it has been wonderful. As I'm changing, it's helping my children to change. And they're seeing the new habits and behaviors that I'm doing. And I'm talking to them about it. And when I first started the program, I said, okay, our lives are going to change because I want to clean up our life. I want to clean up our house and create a safe and clean environment for you guys to grow up in. So that part was, it's really fun to watch my kids. So anyhow, my one friend went and helped with her. And then she also provided a truck that I loaded specific things that were to go to. I think she went one to like a recycle place and one to like a place where we drop off goods, like Salvation Army. We call it the DI here where I live. Anyhow, and so she hauled things away. And then we did have another area that we would put junk. Anyhow, so we had 5 people that came and helped me to work on cleaning this area, and we've been able to maintain it. And it feels really good. And one of the things, an awareness that I've come to is that as I am shifting and changing me and recognizing I'm not a dirty person and I don't need to scare people away from me anymore, but I'm starting to love myself. I'm starting to honor and respect myself now that I live in a clean and tidy house. See, and it like those affirmations become a part of you, and in a really, really good way and a really, really deep way. And like you're repeating them in your sentences, like I just did. Anyhow, like, so now that asking people to help me has been empowering, and there's an emotional shift, an energetic shift of healing. And I am still very much healing. I know that I'm healing, and I respect that. And I allow myself to be in that space right now. But asking and being willing to let people into my house to help me clean has been a very empowering and healing process. And I'm very, very grateful that I was able to get to that place. And I'm grateful for all of those people who are there for me. I talked to you about, again, and you did some coaching with me about how to have this process go through. And I did like some little thank you cards for them. And it is very connecting to other people. I think as we're healing through our stuff, like we may sit in isolated clutter, but part of healing and getting out of that is connecting with other people, asking for help, receiving help, and not calling and canceling. Because I did have that little moment that I wanted to call and say, no, I can handle this all on my own. And then I was like, no, I really do want the help, and I'm ready for the help. And the calls and the seeing other people also doing cleaning projects and the stuff helps to give me confidence. If somebody else can do it, I can do it. And that really helps too, in recognizing that I am not my clutter. I am not my trauma. I am Ilene, and I'm learning who I am and what I like and what I love. And I really like to live in a clean and tidy house, and that's what I'm creating. So I know I got off on a little bit of a tangent. I tend to talk a lot.
Not at all. Not at all. I love that. And your journey is truly inspiring. Looking back, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone who is hesitant about, should I jump and make that change in my life? Because change is scary, at the beginning when you don't know what you get in, it is scary.
Yeah,
So,
it is
and they're not
scary.
necessarily facing the same challenge as you're facing, but it is scary. And when we say, okay, we will have group call on camera, it's kind of, oh my God, on camera, in group, not alone. It's kind of, oh, now it's not as worse as before, because before COVID, it was even worse to be on camera and in a Zoom room. Most people were not knowing what was Zoom before COVID. But it is still scary to say, okay, we talk about two taboo here. We talk about clutter and we talk about trauma. And we put them all in the same melting pot. So,
And emotions and
and
our emotions that
emotion,
are all
yes,
over the board.
we're vulnerable with our emotion and our authenticity and lots of things, it's about trust and feeling comfortable to, like, we try to establish a group in a safe place where people can share and feel safe.
Well, and
So,
that has been my experience, that is actually what you're not trying to create that. That's very much what your calls and what the Doers Academy for me has turned into. It has turned into the support that I need to make the healing changes in my life that I'm making. And even though when I first started coming onto the calls, I turned the camera off and I didn't want anyone to see me, and I didn't want anyone to see my messy house. I think, as I really look at, underneath that, I didn't want them to see my messy house because I wasn't quite ready even to admit how messy it was. But I did admit enough that I knew I needed to get into a decluttering program. So I think we take things like in small steps, and sometimes we take them as we're ready. And I wasn't ready to see, I was in a lot of denial. I lived in a lot of denial for a really long time. So for me personally, it took a little while for that to change out. And you guys were very patient, loving, and understanding and supportive of me and encouraging for me to make those steps out. And when you're on a live call, you have the opportunity to interact with the people on the call and to ask the questions to the experts, to you and JM. And so I guess my advice to somebody, thinking about coming on this program, or if they're new coming in this program, is that you can change your life, and that you do have to put in the effort and the time and the vulnerability of what's really here in order to change your life. And so I've had to look at some really hard stuff that it wasn't easy to admit that I felt dirty, or that, those things that I've had to change, or that my house was dirty and my life was not where I wanted it to be at this point in my life. And so, like, sometimes we have to look at those hard things, and we get the opportunity to change. I think you call it a paradigm. I would call it a belief system. But we get that opportunity to change something that is no longer serving us, or perhaps never served us. And to be able to be like, you know what? I don't think I want that. I think I can create an identity and a life that I want to have. And so for somebody coming in new, I would say to turn your camera on, first of all. Don't try to live in the dark, and don't try to cover up what's really here. And it is a process. And to be gentle with yourself, I think self-compassion is one of the greatest teachers that I'm experiencing still. And I do have to keep coming back and reminding myself to be compassionate with myself, and to be loving, and to recognize that no one's perfect. We're all learning, we're all growing. But that's the other thing, like in these calls, on the live calls, and you can always, so if you're afraid of being on the call or saying the wrong thing or whatever, you can listen to the replay, but you won't get the changes that you'll get by being truthful and vulnerable and saying what's really here for you on the call, so that you can get the coaching and the help to move forward in each and every moment. And that's the other thing. You guys are amazing in the support that you offer with your calls, because we have that support at least once a day. I guess Fridays are one of the other members, I think it was there, and said that her off days are Fridays and Sundays because we don't have calls those days, but we have calls every other day. So ways that you can connect back to your support system that's helping you to heal and change. And then if you are facing a challenge, you can ask Valerie or JM or Julie, this is what's happening for me, help, or what do you think about this? And they're able to help you. And I know that me personally, I've had a ton of emotional things come up, emotional blocks or cortisol levels too high or whatever, but like they have been there to support me whenever I needed it. But you do have to be willing to ask, and you do have to be willing to say what's really here, or I think something's off, but I'm not sure what, and this is what's happening, or this is the area of my life that I have clutter in. And there's so many different areas, and I believe that trauma and clutter go hand in hand. And I know that for me personally, that has been the experience. And until I was willing to take a deeper look, I could have hired all the house cleaners in the world to come in and clean my house, and I would have just put it back up because I still thought I needed to feel safe, and I still thought I was dirty. And so until I was willing to really go in and change and look at what's there, the true change is now happening in my life to where I have a clean front room. I have a clean kitchen. I can invite someone into my house, and I'm able to maintain those clean areas because I'm doing the work in the calls and in the milestones in the program. And so it really is an organic process that just dive into it, do everything you can, get on the calls and ask questions, because the support is there, and the support is amazing. You won't get that. You won't find that anywhere else. That's why I love the Doers Academy.
And that's a wrap up for today's episode of the Duel Transformation series. Wow, what an incredible journey we have been on with Ilene. Her story reminds us all that it's never too late to break free from the chain of the past, to overcome fear, and to reclaim our lives. Ilene, your courage and willingness to share your experience have touched our heart, and we're so grateful for your openness and your vulnerability. To our viewers, I hope you find Ilene's journey as inspiring and eye-opening as I did. Remember, transformation is possible for anyone, and it starts with that very first step. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, your journey towards a better life starts with you. Until next time, keep on transforming and do well.
Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this episode. If you want to help break the trauma stigma, share this episode and give hope to your friends and let them know it is possible to get free from trauma. Valerie and JM want to help you further by offering you Declutter Your Life 101. Be sure to go to dowellht.com/free yourself. That's dowellht.com/free yourself to get your free quick summary and start your decluttering journey. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next time to discover another secret on post-trauma secrets and decluttering.